Hello and welcome to episode 288 of the Homeschool with Moxie podcast. I'm your host, Abby Banks, and you know that on this podcast, we love to bring you actionable strategies to take you from overwhelmed to confident in your homeschool adventure. Well, I know one of those aspects of homeschooling is preparing our kids for college. And I know it can bring a lot of stress to homeschool families, not only stress around the finances of it, finding the right college, but also what should I be doing in my homeschool with academics, with extracurriculars, with the transcript, with all of it. What should we be doing to properly get our kids ready for that next step? And so I have a treat for you today. I'm chatting with Dave Kozak. He is the founder and CEO of Elite Collegiate Planning. So we're going to talk all about getting your kids ready for college, getting yourself and the finances ready for college. And Dave is the perfect person to answer our questions. So head on over to the show notes at 41more.com/288 for links to everything we talk about. But I know you're going to enjoy this conversation with Dave Kozak of Elite Collegiate Planning. Here's that conversation. Hey, Dave, welcome to the Homeschool with Moxie podcast.
I'm glad to be here, Abby. Thanks for inviting me, and I look forward to it.
All right, so let's start about your background. What is your background, and when did you start working in the college planning space?
Oh boy. So my background, I guess, as a financial advisor, became kind of disenchanted with the environment. Lack of a better expression, sort of shark infested waters, and I didn't find a lot of personal satisfaction out of it. And a client actually inspired me. They were asking me questions about college admissions and financial aid and 529s and how all that works. And it sort of sent me down a pathway of research. That research led to a passion. That passion became college admissions and financial aid. And then one thing led to the next. It was sort of the culmination of bringing all that together that led me here 15 years later as a college admissions and financial aid expert.
So what's the best part of your job?
Helping multiple generations of the same family find success, right? So if you plan college appropriately financially, you help the parents retire successfully, but you also help launch the child into a fulfilling career, and it works out better for everybody. So I think that's the biggest, best part of the job.
That's interesting. We don't think about the retirement aspect while you're thinking of getting kids through college, but I mean, obviously it could throw a monkey wrench in the whole end game there.
Yeah, the timing of it like if you think about when you have kids and when as they age 18 years later, and I have four myself, so I'm spread out over 8 years, and if you just add the 4 years to the age of your youngest, when they're going to be 18, when they're 24, you're pretty close to retirement. And so if you've got a lot of debt or you've got a lot of issues you have to resolve, it can certainly affect retirement.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the homeschool market. How many homeschool graduates are you working with?
So we work with a variety of different homeschools. So meaning homeschool graduates. So we have some that did homeschool for their elementary education, then matriculated into the high schools. Some of our clients are focused on, they want the religious background or they want the framework to be there, but then once it gets into the higher level education, they need some support there. And we've had several that have done a homeschool blend with cyber. So they come from all over, and it's more prevalent now than it ever has been, for a multitude of reasons I'm sure you discussed on this. But the college side doesn't really change that much, other than I think the homeschoolers come in with a more open look at it because they don't really have people influencing in different ways, like the high school students or the traditional education does. So we deal with a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Do you see unique challenges that the homeschoolers have to overcome when preparing for college?
I don't know that they're unique in terms of the process. Certainly unique in terms of different, right? You're the and I don't want to speak out of line. A lot of times there is a desire to do some commuting work early in the homeschool environment. They don't necessarily want that jump straight into an on-campus lifestyle. They usually come in with a more specific desire, right, in the homeschool, whereas a lot of the traditional school system, it's sort of all over the place, right? I think in the homeschool environment, they have a better opportunity to really explore their passions than you do necessarily in the traditional school environment, because you're sort of given everything and advice comes from all angles. So from a process standpoint, it's relatively the same. They just don't get the bias or the advice that others may get.
Mm-hmm. And is this, when homeschoolers are following their passions, really customizing their high school years? Is that an asset when applying to college? What have you seen?
100%, right? The biggest piece of advice I give anyone in the admissions process is you have to understand what you enjoy, what you like, what you believe you'll be satisfied and in your professional world, and then take a step back, do the research, find the institution. So we're usually getting people that have never done that in the traditional model, whereas when the homeschool model comes in, they've already had a lot of those conversations. It's been a very open educational environment with those that are around them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it actually is awesome to work with because there is direction.
Mm-hmm.
There are some unknowns, obviously, but yeah, I would say they're more refined, and it is certainly an asset because now you can do the detail work necessary to find the right financial, academic, and social fit for that individual.
Now, I know homeschool moms are also concerned with the whole transcript process. Do colleges look at homeschool transcripts with more suspicion? They're not real confident in those transcripts. What have you seen?
So I would be remiss if I didn't say there's not enough evidence to say that they look at the transcript differently. They look more often at the coursework and the curriculum base, right? So are you taking a high level of whatever the subject matter is? Have you shown the proficiencies in the right areas for the individual institution? And what I will say is schools are savvy, and they're very into, did you push yourself in a subject matter as far as you can, right? So a perfect example, in the traditional environment, you have the AP courses, right? And you're a strong math student but a weak English student, and you take all the right math courses, but then you push yourself in English probably to your fault, right? So I think in the homeschool environment, you get to build your curriculum a little bit better. You get to focus on some of those areas, and it can be a massive benefit and sort of advantage that you get because, I don't want to say a school doesn't, if you're going to be an engineer, a structural engineer, and you've taken advanced maths and you've performed well on the exams that you take, and you've got the curriculum there. Again, I would always encourage everybody to do the SAT and ACT because that is a differentiation factor that homeschools can take advantage of, because you can spend time on those exams and prepping for them that others may not have the same amount of time, because you can build it into the curriculum. So to say that they scrutinize it, I think if you show a lack of depth, yeah, they'll probably scrutinize it, but I think they would do that anywhere. So I don't think there's a disadvantage.
Okay. So what has changed in the college system since parents have gone through it?
Oh, what has changed? Well, first we have a declining population. So you're seeing less students go to higher ed. I think there's a lot of stigma around, is college worth it? And I want to put that to bed right now. For the right individual, college is 100% worth it. But I'm also, remember, I make my living helping families get into college and plan around college. So I'm a full proponent of higher education, but it's not for everyone. And, to me, having that self-awareness of what you like and what you don't like can really guide your pathway more effectively. Maybe it's a 2-year certificate degree. Maybe it's an associate's degree. Maybe it's a trade school. Maybe all of those. To me, it's about having options that are appropriate for the individual. What has changed? We've gone flim flam on the SAT versus do we need to take it? Should we grade people on that? That's coming full back in swing. You're going to see schools going back to that stuff because what they've seen is a real drop in retention rates because people getting accepted that maybe weren't of the caliber that they needed to be to stay at that school. The one thing that has changed drastically is the price. I mean, you're talking about 1,000% increase in tuition and cost of room and board and things like that. And the thing that hasn't changed is what the government is willing to give you in terms of loans, right? They're still very small in this for the proportion, 5,500 freshman year, 6,500 sophomore year, 7,500 junior and senior year. That's been for a very long time. So the price inflation has gone up. I think the other thing that has changed for the better, which is a message I try to deliver to everyone, is that the schools themselves have accumulated and amassed large fortunes, basically, that give them the ability to inflate the price, but also then reduce the price through the financial aid system. And if you understand the legal system and the tax system, then you really have a good leg up on the financial aid system because it is a system. And the better you understand it, the better the outcome. There are schools out there where if you show any financial need, they're going to meet it 100%. So their price tag could be 90,000 a year. And, through the FAFSA and CSS profile forms, you show that maybe you can only afford 30. They're going to meet that delta and give it to you. So you could pay 30,000 for a $90,000 education. So understanding your financial position has become a huge part of this because of the way the financial aid system works.
So is that one of the biggest misconceptions then that people come to you with, is the whole financial, how to do this financially?
It's the single biggest misconception that, and I'll explain it more simply. I think people say we can't afford that school and just write it off. They never visit, they never investigate, they never look into it. It's just from the get-go, we can't afford that. Not realizing that school could arguably be the least expensive school you apply to, right? I have a presentation we do where I compare Penn State and Franklin Marshall. I happen to go to Franklin Marshall, and the rest of my family went to Penn State, and both great schools, not discrediting one. But this particular family paid $40,000 for 4 years at F&M, which is an $82,000 a year school, where they would have paid $160,000 to go to Penn State, right? So you don't know what you don't know. So I think everybody needs to take a giant step back and understand the financial position first. Then let's explore. Understand the rules of the game you're playing, then play the game. Don't just go out and start playing.
So let's dive into the finances there. So are 529s the best way to save for college, or are there better ways?
So the answer is it depends. And I don't want to give anybody the sense that I won't give them the answer, but the family's financial position, their ability to save, their income all comes into play in this. So for some families, the 529 could be the absolute best way to get tax-free gains to pay for school. For other families, it could be that false sense of security, right? If you're putting $50 or $100 a paycheck into a 529 and you amass, 30 or 40,000, well, that may cover 1 year, but it's not going to cover all 4. And people think, well, we've been saving forever for this. And all of a sudden you get there, you cover a year. Now, what do you do? So for me, the planning side is always, okay, we've done that. What else have we done? What's the contingency plan? What's the second, third, and fourth year plan? And then for some families, they put a large amount in 529s early and they grow for a long time and they have all the funds there. But they're not the only vehicle, right? People have used different retirement accounts. We have people that use life insurance to do it. There's ways to do it, but there is no right answer for someone. It is, what does the rest of your financial picture look like? How are you going to be viewed by the institution based on the financial aid equations? And then you build your plan for it. So it's a little more than just, hey, this product is the one for it.
Do you have any thoughts or advice on the FAFSA? This is such, like, every time of year where this comes up in all the homeschool groups, everyone is so anxious about filling this out and what do we need to make sure is in place? What can you tell us about that?
All right. So first of all, the FAFSA is the federal application for student aid, right? The free application for federal student aid is what the acronym stands for. It is the gateway to financial aid system. You don't fill out the FAFSA, you don't get anything. It is in 2018, really in the COVID relief bill, the omni spending bill, they changed the whole FAFSA around. Mm-hmm. It's called the FAFSA Simplification Act. It didn't really simplify it. What it did was it requires you to fill out less information, which is good for all intents and purposes. But it's not a very formalized instruction-based form. So it doesn't say this is this is this. So a couple of pieces of advice. Do not include any retirement accounts as assets on the FAFSA, right? So you may have $300,000 in a 401k. That is not a disclosed asset class on the financial aid. So you don't disclose retirement accounts, and you don't disclose home equity as an asset either on it. And the real downside is if you do, you'll never know. You just won't get the financial aid that you were deserving. So you never want to over disclose assets on the financial aid forms. And the ones you are supposed to disclose and required to on a federal form is the, money in your checking and savings, money in your stock accounts that are not retirement. But biggest advice I can give everybody is do not include your retirement on the FAFSA.
Okay, good. So tell us the difference between a financial planner who plans for college and a college financial specialist. It all sounds the same. What's the difference there?
So I don't work with any clients that, well, other than referral-based financial clients, right? Some friend says, hey, you've done great for us. Will you work with this person? But our specialty is at this incredible intersection of money and spend, right? Of accumulation and spend, right? This is the first time most families have to jettison a large amount of their net worth, and it happens sequentially, right? For me, once I start, I've got 16 years basically of paying. Well, if you have a lifetime of savings and then you've got to spend it down in 16 years, you better plan effectively for it, right? So the difference between a financial planner that does some, plans for college, they haven't studied the financial aid system, the actual spend down. They haven't gotten into what is necessary to make, number one, the right college choice. It all comes down to college choice. If you make a bad choice in the school, you will overpay. You won't get the financial aid that is necessary. So we focus on both sides. We have to help the parents make a good plan, know where the check's going to come from. But at the same time, I have to turn my admissions team on to the student and say, we need this to jive with the funding plan, right? Because you could pick the wrong school and the parents can't afford it, or you could pick the right school and not have the plan and you can't afford it, right? So, or you amass a large amount of debt and it does affect retirement. So for me, the college financial specialist, someone who's studied the system, I know all about the retirement out there. I know about IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans. I can set all those up too. But when you help someone in their most critical time with their most valued possession, and I shouldn't say possession, but their child, right? It's the thing they value the most in the world. You get a client for a lifetime. So I have to be an expert on all the other pieces. Where we differentiate ourselves is we're an expert on the entry. We're an expert on getting you in, having the plan to pay, and sustaining it through retirement. So I think that's the big difference.
That's helpful. That's really helpful. I know in the homeschool world, we already talked about transcripts, but everyone always wants to know also you mentioned the standardized tests. You're saying definitely prepare for them, because we have the advantage of more time maybe to prepare for them. How about extracurricular? What does that look like on college applications for homeschoolers? What should we be focusing on there?
So very great question. And I run a podcast myself called College Knowledge, and check it out. I interview high-ranking officials at schools all over the country. I've asked this question to admissions experts, and the answer given to me was, we look at depth, not breadth. So I don't need a kid that does 50 things. I need a kid that does one thing and is invested in that one thing and goes deep in that one thing. Could be Eagle Scouts, could be Boy Scouts. You're an Eagle Scout. Great. could be highly involved in your church group and your volunteer activity, Habitat for Humanity, whatever, but you've gone from a participant to a leadership role to a creator role where you're now going out and finding the project for and you can tell that story through the progression. Some people are very, very good athletes and they spend all their time in athletics, and you can't expect that person to do 17 other things because they practice 6 days a week and they've advanced in that skill, and they've gone from the C team to the B team to the A team, and that progression is there. Some people have to work, they have to be able to afford clothes, and they need jobs, but they maintained a job for a long period of time. They went from an associate to a manager to a shift manager or something, and they've stuck it out. They're coachable, they're trainable, they have persistency, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they're looking for. And then I would pair that with, if you do those things, man, your essay's built for you. Talk about the drive, the passion, the motivation to do those things. That's what they want to see in an essay. They want to see the passion of it, right? So if your passion and your project work and your extracurricular all come to a head, that's what they're looking for, 100%.
I absolutely love that answer. And I think that's awesome because, like you said, you're becoming a leader in your field rather than just a participant. And I think parents with a lot of young kids think that the kids have to do 50 gazillion things, but it is better, I think, even just for character development and all that perseverance, to stick with something that you become really good at. So that's exciting. That's a good answer. I love it. So give us some advice. How do you find the best fit school? What's the secret there?
So we've pioneered some technology, and I'm not trying to pitch the technology, but I talk about the financial, academic, and social fit, right? So everybody, what's the best fit school? The best fit is the one that is the best financial, academic, and social fit. So on 2/3 of it is about academics and social environment. Some people want a religious school. Some people want a engineering school. Some people want an athletic school. Some people care about the football games. But then there's this financial component. And so we created what's called the Search Faster technology through the College Planning Network. And FASTER stands for Financial, Academic, and Social Targeted Research. And so the idea is cast a wide net. Please cast a wide net. Go visit, do all of that stuff. Make sure that socially you're going to be happy there, because if your student's not happy, parents, that's the worst thing that you can deal with. You're away from them. You can't help them. You can't be there for every step of the way. You can't manage their schedule, manage their classes. So the child has to have a successful social environment, right? What I will say also is every campus has all walks of life. So find your people, right? Ask for help if you need it. The second piece of that is the academics, right? You may want to go to the top tier school. It just might not be the fit. That's the value of the education is not in the classification of the institution. If you go on US News and World Report and see number one, there is no way you can quantify to me, unless you tell me net worth, happiness, and success that people feel on the other side when they graduate in the delta of an education, right? And then the financial side is knowing what you're going to be asked to pay when you go. And so that Search Faster technology at College Planning Network really identifies that stuff for people. So we're rolling it out. It's getting bigger and more robust. But I think the best advice I can give is cast that wide net, understand what you're going to be asked to pay, make sure it's a fit academically and socially.
So how do parents evaluate who's the right person to work with to get this whole college planning underway?
Yeah, there's questions. If you're looking for a college funding specialist, obviously we're happy to talk to anyone at any time, but the questions you need to ask: do they understand financial aid? Do they understand the actual financial side of college? Can they help you with admissions things? Do you have to go build a team yourself? Do you need the SAT help? Do you need the financial help? Do you need that? My problem with it is when you start getting multiple people involved, which is how we created our whole company, we realized we give unique advice, so we have to have all of it in our house so that we can give a sort of comprehensive guidance from combined perspectives. We need all the perspectives and we need to drive it that way. So make sure the person is an expert. make sure you can validate that they're an expert. And, you know, take the time to invest. I always say that, you know, people work with you because they trust you. So if your radar tells you, I can't trust that I don't believe that, you find contradictory information, just walk away, right? Have the courage to walk away. And I know the homeschooling society, they have the courage, right? They have the courage to walk away when it's not right. And so maintain that same courage when you're looking for help in this. If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't seem right, it doesn't have what you're looking for, move on to the next.
So I noticed looking at your site, you have some free workshops on there. What tell us about
We
those?
do. So our free workshops, we have live and virtual workshops all over the area. We educate. So the idea of the workshop is everybody needs a level playing field, right? So the first thing we teach is how the system actually works. How does financial aid work? What is the cost of attendance, the student aid index, and the family's need? How is the equation established? What are the loans that are out there? How do you go through this process? So it's a first step in a two-step process. You go listen to the workshop, educate yourself. You're going to know more coming out of that workshop than you're going to find anywhere else. Then the second step is you get a free consultation with our organization, and we will talk to you about your specific scenario, because having the understanding is one thing, but then how does it apply to your family is the second piece. So I would encourage everybody, go listen to that workshop in the least. If you take the appointment, great, you're going to know exactly where you stand in the game. If you don't, you're going to be better armed with information when you go out into this marketplace.
And tell us about your podcast as well.
So College Knowledge, we conceived it 3 years ago. We've got, I think, 170 episodes. It airs every Friday. You can go to collegeknowledge.net. And it is me doing what you're doing to me to provosts and deans and professors and schools all over the country. This morning we recorded one from the, well, I can read her credentials, but at Vanderbilt University today. And she is a faculty fellow. She's the associate chair of the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department. She's the director of the Vanderbilt Center for Sustainability, Energy, and Climate, professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering, associate professor of computer science, and director of graduate recruiting for civil engineering at Vanderbilt. So I asked them the questions that I think parents and students want to know. And so if you go and listen to that podcast, we've interviewed, I mean, there's probably 100 schools, 100 different schools at different levels and different majors. And it is all about peeling back the layers of the onion of higher education. So I think for your listening audience, it's a great starting point to what is higher ed and how do you effectively navigate choice and success in it.
So as we wrap up, what's your final bit of encouragement for those homeschool parents staring college years there in the future?
Help your students find the direction and passion, cast a wide net, narrow it down from there, right? Everybody, and never underestimate the value of the visit. Go see it, go feel it, step on campus. Does it feel right? Like when you find that place, don't fall in love with it until it falls in love with you, right? So don't go, I'm going to this school, because you do have to balance the financial side, but do your research. Like, take a step back and really do it with a targeted direction, because too many people go through it with, well, I'll figure it out when I get there, and that is just a very expensive and timely proposition to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dave, thanks for joining us and giving us all this great advice. It was really helpful. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Abby. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I hope your listening audience got something out of it.